Joining us here, head coach of the Memphis Tigers, Ryan Silverfield. Massive matchup in the AAC this week against South Florida. Winner maybe with the inside track to that college football playoff berth. So, Coach, I don't want to harp on last week, but I feel it's something that in this sport you hear about kids and emotions, look-ahead spots, sandwich games, and you see UAB going through a coaching change, and you're a big favorite, and you know you've got that big home game the following week against South Florida. Is that something that we just kind of use as hyperbole, or is there something there where it really is difficult at times to get these kids to go one game at a time, even though, as you as coaches always say, one game at a time, 1-0 every week?
Yeah, we absolutely say it, right? Every coach in the country uses that example. But ultimately for us, I think that we had a great week of practice leading up to it. I think the guys were bought in and truly, did it the right way with great focus on the task at hand. And ultimately, we didn't go out there and execute at a high enough level. But I don't think it had anything leading up to it. We weren't thinking ahead. I think you put too much preparation, too much work in the week to focus on playing a Saturday. In any given week, we're seeing what some of these teams have done with interim head coaches, right? Whether it's UCLA, some of these other schools, right? They bring in an interim and usually they're playing really hard for a few weeks. And there's a lot of unknowns. I mean, literally, I was watching film of the quarterback from high school on my phone in the locker room pregame. We found out they were having a change there. So ultimately, no excuses, no explanations. We didn't handle our business and led to our first loss.
Speaking of a quarterback play, you do have an injury at quarterback. How do you prepare in a week for a game like this when you're sort of trying to figure out which quarterback you have healthy?
Yeah, Jeff, we're fortunate. We got, 3 quarterbacks that have played in games so far this year that we feel comfortable with. They can go out there and play at a high level. I think you get a feel, okay, hey, if the starter's, not playing up to the performance or he can't go well enough at practice, then we got to go with one of the other two. And ultimately, whether it's Arrington Maiden or AJ Hill, we feel very, very comfortable with both of those young quarterbacks, right? One of them just turned 18, the other just turned 19. One's a true freshman, the other is a redshirt freshman. Obviously, Brennan Lewis, who had been the starter, has had a lot of success. But, if he's injured, what you do is you look at how the week goes during practice. If he can't go at all or at a high enough level to where it may, hurt your chances, then ultimately you got to go with another hand.
Coach, off the loss, now you're a dog. If that doesn't work for motivation, nothing will, huh? This is a great spot to get the boys ready to go.
Yeah, look, this is a great opportunity. It's the next opponent, right? To use the coach speak, right? We're just trying to go 1-0 this week. We know how important every game is. I think the world of this conference, the American, there's some great competition. I think we're seeing that now as the season goes on. Every team, Navy's still playing at a really high level, Tulane, obviously South Florida, East Carolina's had some really close ones on any given week. Any team is capable. And so ultimately, this is the next challenge ahead of us. This is a huge one. I'm glad that they're still nationally ranked and look forward to this opportunity.
What makes playing South Florida and Alex Golish's offense so tough? Because they really have, outside of the Miami game where they fell behind and the Miami kind of defensively one of the better teams in the country, not many teams have really slowed them down this year. I know the Florida game was a little bit of a mess, but they've been pretty efficient so far. What is about Golish's offense that makes them so difficult to slow down?
Well, one, they've done a good job of taking care of the football, right? They're first in the conference in turnover margin, so let's start there. And then ultimately, they're one of the fastest tempos in college football. And so can you handle the tempo? Can you get lined up as a defense, make the calls, and then go out there and execute at a high level? We understand they're very explosive, right? They've averaged 57 points over the last 4 games. But ultimately, can we get lined up? Can we stop the explosive? They're going to take shots down the field throughout the game. And then their quarterback, it starts and ends with him, right? There's times where there's designed quarterback runs. And then there's also times where, right, it's 3rd and 8. He just pulls the ball down. Next thing you know, he's down the field for 20 yards. He's 6'3 plus, 235 pounds, and runs a 4.4 something. And so he's been in that system for a while. He understands how to operate at a high level. We're going to have to bring everything in our power, right, to be able to sustain him. We know there's going to be a play made here or there, but ultimately we can't allow that to dictate the game.
How do you prepare in practice for a team that does tempo? We hear a lot about teams that play fast like that. What do you do at practice to get ready? Because you can't just run more wind sprints in week 8 of practice.
Yeah, right. Especially this far in the season. It's not about just going out there. And we are not a tempo offense. So ultimately, the scout team's got to give a good look. we've done a variety of different things. We even do some crossover where I'll take, 5 offensive linemen, this 5 starters, I'll take the 5 backups, and we'll line 2 huddles and just rapid fire getting them ready for that. And then we do some tempo, right? Hey, can we go 5 good plays? But ultimately, it's really hard to meet and match, right? Some of these times they're sustaining drives more so than they have in the past. So, Jeff, ultimately, right, how do you prepare? You got to get it. And, you do some things where you have the defense turn around, flip around, quick see the formation, get the call, get their cleats in the ground. And then, oh, by the way, you got to go versus a team that's got a lot of athletes line up and find a way to tackle them as well.
Coach, you're 27-6 over the last 3 years. You've been Arkansas, Iowa State, Florida State, West Virginia as well. What makes your program so ready to execute and win these games?
Well, look, we love the challenge, right? Ultimately, like I mentioned earlier, I think this conference is a great one. So we love being able to play Power 4 teams, right? We love being able to play on a national stage versus these teams that are ranked, that are considered blue bloods. And for us, it's the opportunity to come out swinging. Like, we want to play anybody. We are always looking to play the bigger name opponents, if you will. We want those type of games. We've made calls around the country begging teams in the SEC to play us, ultimately because I think it's a great test to what we're able to do here. And I think it's a testament also to what we've been able to build this program. You talk about that. We beat Mississippi State a few years prior to that. Like, just what can we do year in and year out to continue to put this program at a national level? And credit to the administration, credit to the coaches and all the players, because we're not backing down from anybody. And the more we can play those type of teams, the better. And our guys have done a great job of facing those opponents and saying, okay, give us your best shot because we're giving you ours.
Well, Memphis obviously got a chance to play one of those big boys in the college football playoff, the New Year's Six a few years ago. And I alluded to it earlier. It does look like the winner of the American is going to be the Group of 5, Group of 6 representative in the playoff this year. You've alluded to the conference and its depth. Like, kind of state your campaign. What is it about the top of the AAC and even the middle of the AAC that people really don't realize? You always hear about, the depth of the SEC or the top of this league, top of that league. But the American, the top 4 or 5 teams in that league really have done quite well this week, and certainly against some of the bigger boys like you guys did with Arkansas early this year.
Yeah, well, I think it starts with that, right? Again, I sing the praises of this conference. This is my 10th year here at Memphis, and I've seen how good this conference is. And then you see what other teams do. And I certainly don't want to toot other teams in our conference's horn, but like South Florida, what they did to Boise State, right? What they did to Florida, what Tulane did to Northwestern and Duke. I mean, so ultimately you look at Army on the road versus Kansas State. And so you sit there, it's very hard to sit here, in my opinion, to argue against this conference certainly being the best non-Power 4 conference out there. It certainly is. And you look at the coaches that are coming through here, the style of play, and ultimately, the winner of this conference will go to the playoffs. But ultimately, like we all talk about, it's the goal is to get to the conference championship and win that, and then ultimately that's up to the decision makers to decide that.
When you hear 18-team playoff, 24-team playoff, 36-team playoff, I think we all cringe on the inside. I'll speak for myself. But when you hear 18-24, what's your reaction to that?
Look, there's so many different things that are occurring, right? Whether it's transfer portal rules, or we allowed to bet on sports. I mean, it's all the different things. I certainly during the season, the capacity to even consider that stuff, let it be, because ultimately, I don't think anybody's going to knock on my door and say, "Hey, Ryan Silverfield, what's your opinion?" And we're going to go with that, because I can promise you, ask all 136 Division I coaches, it doesn't matter, right? Ultimately, I like where it's at right now. I truly do. It's like when people say, should the NCAA basketball tournament go to 120 teams? I'm a traditionalist, right? And
I knew I liked you.
Bear wants more games to bet on, Coach. That's all. He just wants more games.
No.
Well, yeah, that's not my thought on the whole thing. That's cool. But ultimately, look, I'm a traditionalist. I like it being at 12 teams. And I like the fact that I can go into a home of a recruit and say, listen, if we win our conference, we legitimately have a chance to go to the college football playoffs every single year. And we know there's teams in college football that the head coach really can't say that. So I think this is a great spot.
All right, now that we've done all this, let's get to the real meat and potatoes here. Unbalanced pin pull concepts, Coach. What are we calling them? What are we doing? Let's get to the real important stuff.
Let me get my pen and paper out here.
That's right. So this podcast has now turned into a 6 hour and 37 minute. All right. I've got my illustrations. I'll pull up behind me and let's rock and roll. So yeah, we could talk scheme all day long, Jeff, for sure.
One thing though on that, like I think people in the past always, you heard of Memphis. When you think Memphis, you think like high-powered offense and some of the skill players. And Coach Norvell always preached special teams to get his players into the league. What's one thing about your team that maybe the general public doesn't know, or one area that maybe things have changed in a different or a better direction in the last couple of years?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think everybody sits there and looks back, and Coach Norvell and I have a tremendous relationship. I was certainly, hopefully I had a little bit of part of the success there, for 4 years. Yeah. And so ultimately, right, you talked about the Cotton Bowl game, right? That was my first game as the head coach, first Penn State, and we scored more points than any team did against Penn State in a 2-year history. And then over the years, we're at 45 plus games of scoring 20 points or more. And so the consecutive success every time they take the field and the efficiency of our offense, I think that's huge, because you always see these teams that go out there and score 60 points in a game, and the next week they go out and lay an egg and score 3. And so, we take quarterbacks from Brady White, the longtime starter, to Seth Hennigan, who we started as a 17-year-old, who went on to, right at the end of his career, win 10 games and 11 games and beat the Iowa States and beat the West Virginias and the Florida States. And then ultimately now we're taking a quarterback in Brendan Lewis, who I think won 5 games the last 3 years, and he wins his first 6 here. So ultimately, we're putting guys in the right position to have success. And I think what people also realize is we're a pretty darn gritty football team.
I'm sold.
I'm in.
We certainly appreciate you joining us, and wish you the best of luck, not only Saturday, but the rest of the season. Ryan Silverfield, Memphis head coach, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, bud.
Appreciate you guys having me on. Take care and go Tigers.
Bear Bets full episodes drop twice a week right here on the Bear Bets YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to stay ahead of the odds, and let's celebrate all of our wins together.